Hey guys, it's Nick. Welcome to another episode of T-365. Today's episode, we're covering the updates from Microsoft in March of 2024. If you follow along in the past, you know I focus in on what's relevant to the MSP space, blocking out the noise from the 100 or so announcements that come from Microsoft each month. As always, I do supplement this video with a blog post down below, so if you want to check that out, it contains additional information about all these announcements, including helpful tutorial links, things like that. So be sure to check that out after you watch this video. As always, if you want to stay up to date with these announcements, be sure to subscribe to the channel. Otherwise, let's go ahead and dive in. Okay, so getting into it here, I want to announce a new enablement guide and template that I've created here as well for NIST cybersecurity framework mapped to Microsoft 365. So it's both an enablement guide to show you some recommended security controls and how they map to the NIST cybersecurity framework 2.0, newly published, as well as this Power BI template that's multi-tenant capable where you can track both your NIST compliance as well as how many security controls that you've implemented within your customer environments. So definitely check that out after this video. It's part of that blog post I'm supplementing below. Getting into Teams here, this is some minor UI updates to the pre-join screen for Teams meetings. You'll see that here in this screenshot with the time frame of the meeting, but also the number of participants that have joined already in that meeting. This is not available for guest users to join, but for internal members of the organization. This will happen mid-April, be complete by late April. Next one here is more intelligence behind the attachments within Teams chats, Teams channels as well. As you can see here in the screenshot, using more of the context of the chat to serve up a recommended document to attach versus you kind of having to search or browse in the File Explorer if you were familiar with that experience. Timelines for this one's mid-April, be complete by early May. Next one here is the ability to hide general channels. You've never had this ability before. You've had the ability to hide other channels, but the general channel is always there as a placeholder. So now you're able to hide that as well too, just to have a little less clutter if that one's not applicable to you. This will happen mid-February, be complete by early April. This next one here is more of a UI update as well too, where they're bucketizing the various Teams meeting features as far as how you want to organize that in the various settings into these buckets that you can see within the screenshot. So it's just a little bit more logically separated versus before it was kind of a laundry list of items that were all on one page. This will happen late April, be complete by late May. Voice isolation is next here. Basically helps with noise suppression using some AI features and leveraging some machine learning going on with your voice to eliminate other human voices in the background, maybe if you're in a coffee shop as an example of that. Again, that's available now, so if you're in a Teams meeting, you can go ahead and see that from the drop down there. Intelligent call recap is another new feature here that's available within Copilot or Teams Premium, just as a call out there. It's not available with Teams Basic licensing. But it's the same thing as the intelligent meeting recap if you're familiar with that, but just for our PSTN calling as well too. So if there's a transcript as part of that, it will summarize that into this recap that you see here on the right hand side. They mentioned not too descriptive timelines here, first half of 2024, not available yet, but we should see that in these first 6 months. The last one here for Microsoft Teams is this Queues app, and this is specifically if you're leveraging Microsoft Teams for PSTN calling. And this is giving you this application here for managing the customer calls, and you can see some of the visual UI elements, but it's queuing up the calls within the system. This will happen early March and be complete by late March. Shifting into Microsoft Outlook here, they introduced this feature that you can see here, which is related to setting your own work hours and also location to accommodate for remote and hybrid work. With these additional features here, they're updating this daily location menu to help users plan their day, see who else is in the office really quick as well too. And then you can actually integrate your out of office time with that as well too. So people know if you're not in the office for any reason, that's also going to be directly integrated to this experience. It's in that calendar view within Outlook. That'll happen late March, be complete by late March as well. Next one here is for Outlook Mobile. This is very basic in nature, but it's giving you the ability to pivot into chat within Teams for a meeting directly from the calendar section of the Outlook application. This will happen mid-February, be complete by late June. And then the last one here for Outlook, for the new Outlook that is the ability to copy an email as an attachment. So this is overcoming the need to copy and paste a very long email thread into another one to go ahead and add some more context if you ever do that. This is giving a more seamless experience for the users who would receive that as well. This is going to happen mid-February, be complete by late June. Shifting into Microsoft Loop here as well. Loop is very new in nature, but they're adding features. This is one I expected to be coming here, which is the guest sharing capability. So you can share workspaces, pages, and components with guest users outside of your organization. The key call out here is that this is a new data vector that we have to be prepared with, but it does tie into our OneDrive and SharePoint sharing settings as well too in the admin center. So keep in mind whatever you have there will replicate into Loop as far as the anyone links or new or existing guest users, if you're familiar with that. So keep that in mind from a security perspective. This will happen late April and be complete by early June. Shifting into Microsoft SharePoint here, I thought this first one was pretty cool just from an auditing perspective. You get change history reports now for including organizational settings. And this is something where if somebody goes in and tampers with the settings as far as the permissions and what happened with changes to access and sites, you have a complete audit trail of that you can reconcile. And I think that's big just from a security sense when we talk about retroactively looking at maybe an incident or who changed things and why did our tenant drift into this different direction where it's less secure for this repository where we may have sensitive documentation as an example. So this is going to be going into public preview worldwide beginning in mid-March, and it'll be complete by early May as far as that rollout of public preview. You can sign up for that, and I'll link that in my blog post as well. And then this other one here, if you didn't already know, I mentioned this in a update video a couple months ago, but SharePoint has their own native e-signature offering now that's outside of something like DocuSign or anything like that. But you can integrate this now with the Approvals app within Teams to basically track and help automate the ability for you to go through that signing process with individuals either internally or external to your organization. This is going to happen mid-May and be complete by mid-June. Shifting into Microsoft Defender here, some cool announcements I think from a security perspective. If you're leveraging Defender for Office 365, they also, much like the SharePoint audit trail, are introducing an audit trail for the quarantine release details. So you can actually see who that was released by and who was responsible for that. So again, you have a bit of an audit trail backing behind that. And I think that's important for an MSP who may have many technicians going in and releasing emails. Might be something you want to audit if it was something that shouldn't have been released. This will happen late March and be complete by mid-April. This other one here is pretty cool for the phishing component of Defender for Office 365, where users can report phishing messages. And now as an admin, you can basically send automated responses depending on the evaluation after looking at that particular email. And that might be through the automated investigation that goes on from the Defender portal as well too. And users can receive various messages. This is just one example of one. You can see others in the link that I put in the blog post, but you can see that the user is getting that feedback that yes, this email was phishing or this email was actually healthy. So I think that's really important because there's no feedback loop in most organizations today when a user submits that unless it's manual. And this is an automated way to give them that to reinforce positive or negative behavior as far as the vigilance around these detections. And then the last one here is related to Defender for Cloud Apps. So not a lot of us may have this licensing in SMB, but this does give you the ability to block sensitive data from being copied and pasted into a third-party Gen AI tool like ChatGPT. So this is where we get into some of the data protection, data flows concepts of your data within your organization. And effectively, this is using a combination of information protection and purview to be able to detect this certain information from the policies you had out, like in this example, the keywords here for this Project Obsidian, which is maybe something really sensitive to the organization, and preventing that user from pasting that into ChatGPT. So you can see a full demo video of that in the links in the blog post that I have. This is GA now as well too. Shifting into Microsoft Edge, another good security feature in my mind where you can add organizational branding for the Edge profiles that you have. So it's a managed browser. You can actually do a lot of security features or have a lot of security features implemented for Edge now. But this is a great way to provide that level of organizational branding to isolate their instance and give them that clear visual representation of their corporate data versus their personal data. And I think that's good for our users to see that as well, just like we do today within the Entra portal for sign-in information. This will happen late April and be complete by early May. Shifting into Microsoft Entra, this is something that you may have seen if you are an admin for conditional access policies as well too, but they're adding an insider risk consideration into the session controls as well too, with some of the machine learning capabilities going on if you do have licensing that includes insider risk policy management. And that's only, generally speaking, for E5 customers or larger licensing models. So just keep that in mind. Probably not as applicable to SMB right now, but you probably will question what it is if you see it within conditional access. But it's basically monitoring their activity with data as well as just other general day-to-day tasks, and it's ensuring that these users, have some levels of a protection of, either blocking that user or preventing them from sharing certain materials as well too, until you get them into a better state, much like the risky user concept that we have in Entra right now as well. This is GA today. Again, you can take a look at a demo video in my blog post. Okay, shifting into Copilot here. Copilot is quickly becoming the new Teams as far as the verboseness or the amount of updates that we have each month. And so I got quite a bit here to show for you guys here, but one of the biggest ones is that Security Copilot, or Copilot for Security, is going to be generally available starting on April 1st. So by the time you're watching this video, probably are likely GA. It has a really weird pricing model, which is based off of consumption that ties into your Azure subscription based off of usage. And you'll see more about that in my blog post, but exciting. I think I want to try this out. I'll come out with more of a tutorial video on this, but it should be helping you investigate certain incidents, and that spans across Intune, Entra, Defender as well. So it'll be interesting to see how well this works, and it'll be great to see if it could work maybe in a multi-tenant setting in the longer term as well too. So there's a lot going on, as you can see here within this particular video as well, where it's kind of analyzing your components across, the various Defender platforms as well as your MDM solution too. And that leads into the introduction of Copilot in Intune as well. And I think this will be really interesting. I wish it was multi-tenant by default at first as well too, but you do have some prompts here that I think look interesting. I don't know how well they'll work, but things that pop out to me is things like show app installation failures, or analyze this error code and tell me what it means. It's one of the most ambiguous things in Intune today, so likely to see, or would want to see how well that works. But this is going to come April 1st, be part of that Copilot for Security licensing model as well. And then similar concept here, this is added to Copilot for Security as well, but this is helping you investigate a very common topic, which would be investigating risky users within that environment. So it's analyzing the sign-in logs, the group details, user details, all of that to provide a more comprehensive summary where you don't have to manually do that investigation as well. Again, another area that I would want to test to see how well it works compared to the manual investigations that we do today. This will be part of that Copilot for Security licensing. Another announcement here from the licensing perspective, we do have the extension of Copilot prerequisite licensing moving into frontline workers with F1 and F3, as well as 365 E1 Business Basic as well too. So this is not surprising by any means. They want to incorporate Copilot as much as they can into all licensing models. No official timeline yet on when this is going to be officially available as base level licensing that you can then bolt on Copilot to, but it's just expanding the footprint of eligible customers. And then the other one here that was interesting that I think is going to be great is the upgrade of the model to GPT-4 Turbo. And so this is going to be, more comprehensive. It's a more advanced large language model. So this does not have any official timelines yet, but we can see it coming out in the next few weeks here for users. There's nothing you have to do to upgrade itself. It'll just be a back-end change. This is another feature here that was recently released where you can send an admin message that's a popover message for users that have Copilot licensing here. And this is basically going to prompt users who haven't used Copilot in the past 30 days to say, hey, you should maybe try this out from an adoption sense. We're doing that internally because we're slowly trying to roll out Copilot licensing to our users. And we want to make sure that people are adopting the product or just cognizant of it, and then stripping license from people who aren't because of the cost and moving it to others. So this is happening late March and be complete by mid-April. On Teams Mobile now, you do have the citations as well too. That'll come from the transcript as well for calls that you're on or meetings that you'll be able to cite, and that's just supporting this on mobile now. So by mid-April, be complete by early May. In the admin center, you have a couple of different reports now for Copilot, but now AI in the sense of adoption. This one's pretty granular in the sense that you can see what actions users are taking with Copilot features, such as summarizing meetings, summarizing conversations, email threads, drafting new Word documents, all of that. So you can kind of see where users are gravitating towards. You might use that data to perform new training events or type of webinars to try to drive adoption, or just gravitate more people into that type of model because it's working well for that department or business overall. This will happen late June and be complete by late July. Next announcement here is enterprise grounding and web grounding for Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and OneNote. That's a fancy way of saying that it's going to use web content as well as all the context in your Microsoft 365 environment to serve up answers rather than just the isolated context of whatever Word document you're working in or the Excel document. Today, this only exists in Microsoft 365 chat, if you've interacted with that, where it's surfacing information across all the various sources like your Teams chats, your emails, your meetings to serve up the best answer. And today, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, OneNote's isolated context. So it's just expanding that. Timelines for this one is long in the sense of how long we have to wait. They expect to complete this in September, but they're going to start with Word in April as well here too. Copilot in Forms, some very basic functionality here that you can use to create forms and customize the themes really quickly and easily. I tried it out. It's not really something I'm going to dive into fully, but they're just going to keep expanding this into each product line as well. This will happen late February, be complete by early March. The next two functionalities here are security features for Copilot I think are important to understand as admins. And we get back to just data privacy concerns and things like that when we talk about Copilot. So this is allowing you with Microsoft Purview to look at this access resources field as part of an audit. So you can see exactly what Copilot was serving up to a particular user and identify maybe if that was sensitive documentation that they shouldn't have had access to. It's all part of a continuous improvement plan if you think about your data governance strategy and just security overall if you're implementing Copilot today. This will happen mid-March, be complete by late March. And then the other security feature here is restricted SharePoint search. So by default, Copilot's going to go in and index all of the data across SharePoint sites as well. And as an admin now, you can restrict the searching and indexing that's going on to prevent it from looking at certain SharePoint sites. And as a user, you may get that prompt like you can see here within your chat window as well, but there may be sensitive SharePoint sites you just say nobody should be able to query this with Copilot regardless of if they have direct access or not. I just want to be overly protective in that sense. That'll happen early April, be complete by late June. Next one here is related to multi-turn conversations, and that's a fancy way of saying that you can basically interface with the chat within a Teams context, like within a chat message itself or within a particular context within a channel to interface and kind of elaborate or expand off of what you initially ask as well versus just that isolated context of a single answer at a time. Again, the only tool within the stack that does that today is Microsoft 365 Chat. So this is just extending that context into other applications within the environment. This will happen early April and be complete by late April. And then the last one here for Copilot is the responses being improved with web content. This is a org-wide setting that's going to be on by default now for enhancing the experience that Copilot chat users have, where it's leveraging web content to infuse that as part of its answer back to you or part of the prompt as well too. And you can turn this off if you didn't want that incorporated for any reason. Again, this is not training a large language model, public large language model with your data, just simply incorporating web information. And then lastly here from an admin section, Microsoft Lighthouse, new logo you can see here on the right-hand side. But they came out with an article that I linked in my blog post you want to check out for some of the updates if you use that tool today. One of the highlighted ones I wanted to call out here was user offboarding capabilities. So multi-tenant capability for offboardings with some automation behind it, like deactivating the user, stripping their license, things that you would typically do, things that CIPP has done for a while in the sense of capabilities. And then the last one here is Microsoft Purview. This is for those of us who leverage a lot of automation, but they're extending audit search into the Graph API as well. And I think this will be really cool to see from a security perspective, because you can now query the logs within the API itself and get that data back. So we might see some application use out of that. Timelines for that one's mid-March, be complete by late March. Okay guys, that's everything I had for you today. Definitely comment below with some of the features or functionality you're most excited about, or any questions about anything I covered today. As always, like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, subscribe to the channel to stay up to date with these announcements moving forward. Otherwise, I'll see you guys in the next video.